Our off-season has been proceeding at a pretty nice rate. I feel like we've been getting juice, but there hasn't been too much like conflict. And this week, for whatever reason, everyone just decided to dive into conflict as well. The one that's just been announced, like right before recording, is very funny because Cloud9 have replaced Mitch with Zelsis, and Mitch's girlfriend basically broke the story before anybody else by just having a little rant on Twitter about it, accusing them of nepotism.
C9 nepotism? Surely not.
Accusing them of having no scrapbook, saying that she and Mitch built the scrapbook for them.
I mean, that is very funny to say we
so
built the scrapbook,
funny.
not Mitch. I mean, C9, hire her as assistant coach.
Yeah. Dude, it's so funny. Let me see if I can find the exact comments here. So it was, they didn't have a scrapbook before Mitch joined, by the way, skull emoji. And then she followed up with, I designed the scrapbook with Mitch to use with the team. Now that also implies that she did most of it, the way that she's framed that. I mean, she designed it with Mitch's help, not Mitch did it and I helped. So they really should be hiring her. That's incredible, isn't it? And then saying Mitch really wanted to win. If the rest of his team don't want it badly enough, there's not much else you can do. He worked so hard to get them to the top 4. It's just a shame that he's getting cut after 99% of rosters have been secured. It feels vindictive and icky to me. Nepotism will always win. I'm glad you're not blind to what the actual issue is on that team. Talking to another fan. I mean, those are strong words.
Well, I do think there is one part of it, like the one part of that, obviously, you know, do they have a strap book or not is funny, but the one part to that I think you could argue for C9, the way that they operate, and it is a little slimy, is that they are like those people that are in relationships but always, you know, they're the guy looking over his shoulder. They are constantly that, right? Like they'll stay with you up to a point, but I mean, they literally worded it like that, I think themselves, right, that a better opportunity presents itself. Like, that is just how they operate
during trials.
They don't, you know, like, oh, we need to move on from Mitch, you know, let's find another IGL, we think something else can work, we're happy with you, we'll keep you, as soon as anything's, you know, we think might be slightly better, you're gone, we don't care.
Isn't that how a team that, because C9 are generally a crumbs team, like in the sense of like they're eating the little scraps from the rest of the table. Usually they're not going out there with the big purchasing power ever since, like, you know, cutting Yay back at the beginning of 2023. So isn't that how a team like that should operate, in a very opportunistic manner?
Perhaps, but I think it does, like, I think that if you're Mitch and or his girlfriend, you have a right to be annoyed at that, right? Like, she is right that, you know, most teams by this point probably have like somewhat of a structure, a coach, IGL at least in mind, or have already signed them, right, and know which direction they're going to. So particularly as an IGL, to, like, you know, get cut at this point, you know, it might be a little bit more difficult, and maybe we'll talk about Mitch and where he might go a bit in the future. But I do think there is a right to be aggrieved. Is it, you know, C9 also have the right to, as you say, like, they are a bit of a crumbs team, look for that. I think the problem that C9 have a lot of the time with these moves that they made, like Rossi with last year, is this an obvious upgrade? I think that is another reason why fans get annoyed by this, because not only are you know, getting rid of someone late on, but it's not clear that, like, this definitely will make the team better. Yes, C9 probably think it will make the team better, but I think from the outside perspective, and maybe you guys can talk about this if you wish, does this move actually make C9 definitely better?
I think a change was slightly needed, but my question before answering your question is, the allegations are nepotism against Mitch. There's an ancient tradition / saying called ball don't lie. How was Mitch added to this roster, and when did that happen the last time? You just mentioned Rossi. Right now it's the end of October where Mitch is being removed. Rossi got removed December the 2nd, and Mitch was added afterwards. And Mitch was on the team beforehand. Is that a bit nepotistic? It's not some random player coming in. It's someone you know. It's someone you've paid before. It's someone you dapped up on the regular.
I mean, Mitch...
Ball don't lie.
I mean, Mitch and Vanity, when it comes to C9, have been plus minus many, many, many times. So they definitely... Mitch... I wouldn't say, though, that's Nepo so much as going... Like, you really need a bit of loving and you're going back to someone you know. You know? It's like... It's a bit...
But from Rossi's perspective...
From Rossi's perspective,
but Mitch is Zelsis.
But also... No, but from Rossi's perspective, he it. Like the difference is that Rossi was not a good long-term fit for the team. Mitch could have been, right? We've seen that Mitch actually was really successful with them this year. Mitch seemed like he was doing a good job in terms of, I mean, we didn't know necessarily that he was doing a great job in terms of like actually drawing up the strats for them and stuff, but certainly in terms of his calling, sorry, he was helping though. He was helping, getting all of that up to scratch. I think the two scenarios are quite different, and I think people are very aware that Zelsis and Imi are really good friends. I think that there's no secret about that. They want to, I would imagine, want to play with each other, enjoy the way that each other think about the game. They talk outside of things. Like, when you tend to get aligned with a vision like that, it can lead to a really good outcome for you because the coach and the IGL are on exactly the same page. But I think it's also just you want to play with people like that. I would like to answer TMV's question though about whether or not this is going to make them better, whether it's going to be a good thing for them. A concern I had when they looked to get rid of Net was that they weren't going to have anyone who was actually an energy guy, a hype guy, a guy that was actually going to keep them laser focused on winning and keep the attitude correct, because that to me has been the biggest problem with whatever these like cycling versions of Cloud9 have been, honestly, for the last 3 years since 2023, when they had that was the year where they had Rooney and Jake and stuff towards the end, wasn't it? I think
the MC.
So that I think is solved immediately with the addition of Zelsis, and it allows you to just get a super fragging sentinel kind of player onto the team to make up for Zelsis's weak output. And to be honest, Zelsis's weak output, from what I can remember, is not like it's that much worse than Mitch's as well. I don't think Mitch was lighting the world on fire in terms of his fragging.
But that was before Zelsis was IGLing. Do you not think that there's a worry that maybe he does, dip because he's also having to IGL? And you'll know this better than me, Sideshow, for certain. Do you think, yes, we know that Zelsis is like a, very good character to have on a team. Like, he's a good leader and stuff like that. But do you think his calling will be good? Do you think he has the kind of knowledge of that side of the game to be an effective IGL?
Just first on the fragging, because that's what you asked originally, right? So I've just looked back at stage 2. Mitch was at 0.57 kill per round, which is really, really low. Like 0.6 is already, you are not particularly outputting anything, and then 0.57 is getting the IGL nerf on top of not being a particularly strong fragging player. Zelsis, for all of the criticisms in stage 2, was still dropping 0.66, so considerably better fragging actually than Mitch, even though he is not a big fragging player. So he could afford even to take a bit of a dip in terms of the IGLing, which I don't think you really like. I think Zelsis doesn't actually have his brain focused on his crosshair that much anyway. I think a lot of when you watch Zelsis play, he's thinking about the wider aspects of the game and like, is he in the right position, is he throwing the right utility, much more than he's thinking about like, is his crosshair placement good, that kind of stuff. So I don't think the fragging is going to be an issue. I think if you're bringing that up as a replacement for Mitch, it's a non-starter in my opinion. The better question is the calling aspect, and I have a good answer for you, because even though Zelsis we know is very vocal, it's one thing being super vocal and doing some IGLing, it's another thing being the primary caller for a team and being in charge of stuff like the strats, the vision of the game, that kind of aspect, and I think that is a big question.
I think this is the best time to make a switch, to change your vision and direction for your strats and like how things are going to be shaping up, because the game has changed from a macro perspective on the VCT level a lot since the last patch. So if you're trying to start things from scratch, you're trying to build things again, if your whole strat book got thrown out like this morning, it's not that bad of a thing, because you do have to kind of rethink how you approach the game coming into January.
You think that Mitch took it with him like intellectual property? C9 not allowed to use it anymore.
Like, if they can't play Mitch's game, if the strat book doesn't work without game. Mitch.
Yes. Jesus Christ. We keep giving the men credit for women's
that's
work.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, because you have to build an entire new playbook with how the meta is right now anyways, like with how utils changed, with how you can't really have like 3 segments of a round. It's kind of just once and then another hit again. So it's not, I don't think it's the worst change in the world for getting a whole new IGL.
I actually think it could make them, genuinely could make them better. Like this is the kind of change that could fix some of their mental problems that they have when crumbling, and also add more firepower into the team, because when you have Mitch and Net on a squad, you are relying pretty heavily on Oxy to be a massive fragger. If he has an off game, it can be a bit tough. Now, he actually did have a couple of off games from what I remember in the beginning of the playoffs in stage 2, and they still managed to mitigate that because Net had a big upswing in performance. But it should be a bit more consistent if you can get like a better fragging Sentinel player to join the team. Not that I know
you know
exactly
what my
who that
prediction
is.
for C9 is this year? Because obviously they're coming off 4th place, right? So they fourth place, 5th place technically with them, maybe I'll make no points. So, they got very close to making champs, probably the closest they've been probably the closest they've been since 2023. I think what's going to happen this year is maybe they do get a little bit better with these changes, but the rest of Americas gets more better. And everyone will lose their going, oh, told you should have kept Mitch, what are you doing, all that stuff, even though they potentially did get a little bit better, but everyone in America's also got better, and so they still don't quite make it, and people get mad.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible.